Welcome to this session of Civic Education Paper 2. Okay, so we have this question paper which was written in 2017 August. Okay, so I welcome you everyone. Okay, consider subscribing to the channel, share the link with your friends, families, and so others who might need this content. Okay, so let's get started with section A. So from section A, we are given 20 marks, okay? 20 marks is given from section A, and we are told answer all the questions in this section using one word or short phrase, okay? So the first question is, what concept is used in reference to a political question regarding a vote of all qualified citizens, okay? So we call this as referendum, or sometimes we call it a plebiscite. Okay, so you can say plebiscite or referendum, okay? So we go to the second question. Which electoral system has the following features? A candidate who scores the highest votes win the election. So we call this as first past the post. Okay, sometimes we call it FPTP in abbreviation, or we can refer it to be single member pride system. Okay, so it has two names. Okay, we can say single member pride system or first past the post. Okay, so that is the particular type of system which takes the highest scores. Okay, so we go to the other question. Mrs. Chitema and her church mates were busy preparing meals for a marriage ceremony of her daughter Jane. In the process, okay, Mrs. Kitty, her immediate neighbor, went and joined them in preparations, okay? Which aspect of citizenship did Mrs. Kitty exhibit? Now, if we try to recall, when it comes to aspects, there are two types of aspects, okay? We have moral aspects and then we have legal aspects. So we have to differentiate between the two. So where one, like for example, moral aspects talks about self-awareness, self-discipline, okay, and then also many things that have to do with self. We call that as moral aspects, okay. And then we have legal aspects where one has to be patriotic, and then the legal rights are protected by the state. So that is legal aspect mostly, okay. So if we look at the aspect which deals with the self-awareness and so forth, we call that as moral aspect, okay? So that is moral aspect of citizenship. And then we look at the particular question 4. So mention any two characteristics of human rights. So the characteristics of human rights, there are 4, if we can remember, okay? So we can say that human rights are inherent, okay? And then also we can say that human rights are inalienable, okay, meaning that they are inseparate, they cannot be separated, okay. We can't separate from one's rights, so that's the meaning of inalienable. And then also human rights are universal, okay. Human rights are universal; they apply to each and every person, regardless of sex, gender, okay, race, and so forth, okay. So we have the other one which is present, which is said to be human rights are indivisible. Sometimes they can say interrelated or interdependent, okay. So you cannot divide the rights, okay. So there are 4 characteristics. So we are taught to write 2. So we can state from here, human rights are inherent and human rights are inalienable. So that's what we have for this particular question of 4, okay. And then we have question 5. Dash is the disguising, okay, hiding and concealing the proceeds of crimes such as stolen property or money, so that it appears like it's from a clean and genuine source. Okay, so this is referred to as money laundering. Okay, so money laundering is one of the form of a disguise to show that money appears to be from the clean and genuine source. So we call that as money laundering, okay? So this is part of corruption, okay? If we look at corruption, Okay, so there are some articles that talks about this. So that topic, I'll try to make a video of it, and then from there, you'll be able to understand clearly, okay, what some of the particular articles, and then also the particular articles in terms of forfeiture of the properties that are proceeds of crime. So that one I'll talk about it. And then we have question 6. Suggest any one factor that has a negative bearing on cultural diversity. So there are many factors that can bring about a negative bearing on cultural diversity. So the first one that we can have, we have stereotyping, okay? Stereotyping is one of it, okay? And then apart from stereotyping, we have prejudice, okay? And then we have ethnocentrism. So ethnocentrism is one of the particular factor or negative factor that have a negative effect on the cultural diversity. So we can list these three to be stereotyping, prejudice, okay, and the ethnocentrism, okay. So these are three. I've listed three, okay. So these three, they are factors that can affect cultural diversity. Even though they have stated one, but I've listed three for the sake of study. All right. So let's look into the other question. So from the other side, we are told on question 7, okay, this question is coming from substance abuse. Distinguish over-counter substances from controlled substances. So if you look at over-counter substances, those are substances that easily brought without a prescription. Okay, so one does not need a prescription to buy them. Okay, so they are just brought on the counter. They are easily brought. Okay, the examples that we can give is aspirin, we have Panadol, paracetamol to state, okay? Paracetamol and so many others. Those ones, they can be bought on the counter. But we have controlled substances. These substances that are not easily obtained, okay? And when they are obtained, one needs a proper prescription. Okay, he needs a prescription or special authorization. Okay, like for example, we have cocaine. Cocaine cannot be sold to anyone or maybe given to anyone. Okay, so those ones, they need some special authorization from the drug enforcement commissions, okay, and so many others, like for example, mostly to say the drug enforcement commissions. So those ones, they have to ensure that the drug is given onto a person who has let's say who works in a facility, like for example in hospitals, okay, and needs that particular drug for a certain purpose or a serious purpose, like for example relieving pain on a patient who is being operated and so forth. So those particular substances, we refer them to be controlled substances. So in here we can specify the over-counter substances are substances which can be brought over the counter. Okay, while controlled substances are substances which can only be obtained if one has a prescription or special authorization. Okay, so that's the distinguish between the two. Okay, so we move to question 8. So in question 8 there, okay, we are told a person or an independent agent who links a client seeking insurance from an insurance company is known as, so we call this as the insurance broker. Okay, so this question is coming from insurance. Okay, so the system of ensuring that properties, okay, are secured from financial risks. Okay, so the insurance broker is a person who is an independent agent. He links clients, okay, seeking for insurance cover. Okay, so then we have this question, question 9. Mr. Karibe Kantu was beaten, okay, at a market after a marketeer shouted the thief, okay, in his direction. The police arrested him and kept him in police cells for 2 days before releasing him. Which one of his rights was violated? Okay, so we have right to a speedy and fair trial. Okay, so this is about let me say this question is coming from type of crimes, and then also we have the rights of a person, okay, who is prosecuted. So we have right to speedy and fair trial. So these are some of the rights. Okay, so these rights were violated. And then 10, Mr. Chirangamuliro, a businessman of Matebeto village, died interstate. Okay, he left 50,000 in his Anako account. Okay, how much money will be allocated to the children? So from the perspective of interstate, it states that 50% should go for children. Okay, so 50% out of, if we look at 50%, 50% is for children. So if 50% is for children, okay, so we would do 50% of 50,000, or we can say, what is the 50% of 50,000? So the half of 50,000 is 25. Okay, so this is 100%. Now if you take 50% of it is 25. So 25 has to be allocated to children based on the Interstate Act. Okay, so we look at the other question. So on the other question there, we are given on question 11, what is the effect of civil wars on the environment? Okay, so civil wars have an effect on the environment. So one, they bring about environmental degradation in places of war. Okay, so the environment most of the time is disrupted, and then there is serious damage that comes onto the environment. Then also we can state where conflicts take place, infrastructures is damaged. Okay, so the infrastructure damaged, like buildings, okay, schools and other businesses, centers, they are damaged out of wars. Okay, and then we have question 12. Okay, coming from gender-based violence, okay, and so forth. Okay, we are told in here, explain the concept sexual harassment. So sexual harassment in general forms, we can state, is when someone keeps saying things or doing things of a sexual kind, okay, like touching, okay, and then also, or making sexual remarks, okay, like for example, start describing the particular shape of a person, okay, giving out nasty comments. All those, they are sexual harassment. They are classified as sexual harassment. Okay, then question 13. Okay, why is budgeting important for national development? Okay, so the importance of budgeting, we can state, it helps the government to stick to the goals set in the budget. Okay, that's one of the importance of the national budget. And then also we can state it determines the performance of the economy. Okay, so the national budget determines the performance of the economy. So they are able to see how the economy is moving. Okay, so we have that. And then in here we look at question 14. How is poverty associated with the negative aspect of human development? So when we look at poverty, poverty is the state of lacking basic needs. Okay, so in there we can state poverty can bring about lack of literacy. Okay, literacy levels, they are down, okay, when there is poverty. And then also safe water and sanitation is less. Okay, and then it leads to an outbreak of infections. Okay, so we can specify to state lack of literacy, safe water, and the sanitation. Then also we can state, okay, there is insufficient access to food and nutrition. Okay, so these are some of the effects associated with poverty. Okay, and then also we can say adequate shelter. So there is no shelter for people. Okay, so we have that, and then we go to the other question. So in the other question, we have question 15, the last one for section A. Okay, na mwene obtained the loan, okay, from a local lending institution with conditions attached, and at the highest rate. Okay, what kind of a loan is this? Okay, so we can state, we can call it a Fred aid. Okay, we can call it a Fred aid or a tied loan. Okay, so any of the two. Okay, so we can say a tied loan or the Fred aid. Okay, that's what we can state. Okay, So we go to section B. So in section B there, okay, we are given some questions, okay. This is 40 marks, but we'll do one part of it and then the other one we'll do it in time, okay. So in here, the examiner went on to state there are 7 questions in this section. Answer any 4 questions in your of your choice in the answer booklet provided, okay. So question 1, briefly explain each of the following concepts in relation to the Constitution. A preamble. So the preamble in the definition, we can describe it as the introductory part of the Constitution, okay? So that is the preamble. So we can say it is an introductory part of the Constitution, okay? And then also we have the supreme law of land. So when they say a supreme law of land, they mean it is a fundamental law, okay, to which all other laws of the country are subordinate, okay? So we call that as the supreme law of land, okay? Then also we have question C. Okay, so question C, we have sovereignty. So sovereignty implies that the government, okay, of the state has the absolute and final legal authority, okay, over all matters and is not subject to any power outside of itself. So we call this as a sovereignty, okay. So that's what we have there, okay. Yes, or sometimes we can say the particular government, or sometimes can be said to be the complete freedom to govern oneself, okay, without the outside interference. Okay, so we call that as sovereignty. Okay, so let's look into the into question D. Okay, so on question D there, okay, we have separation of powers, okay. So when they say separation of powers, what they mean a principle that states that the 3 organs of the government, the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary must work independent, okay. They should be independent without interfering each other, okay, in operation, okay. But at the same time, there should be a check on each other to ensure that they operate within the law. Okay, no one should be operating outside the law but within the law. So in here, there shouldn't be interference. Like for example, where one body starts controlling the other one. Okay, so that is not acceptable when it comes to separation of powers. So each particular body is independent to perform its duties without interference from any body. So we have that, okay? So we can specify it's the principle that that states that 3 organs of the government, the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary must work independently without fear, okay, of interfering in each other's operation, but at the same time, they should check on each other to ensure that they operate within the law. So that's what we can specify, okay? Then we go to question E. So question E, we are told to describe the Bill of Rights, okay? So the Bill of Rights is the list of fundamental rights and freedoms, okay, which is covered in part 2 of the Zambian Constitution. So if we look at the part 2 of the Zambian Constitution, there it specifies the particular rights, okay, of individuals. So individuals have their own rights, okay. So we can specify that to be this, okay. Yes, and then let's go to the other question. So we have question 2. Okay, so this is about local councils, decentralization, and native chiefs, okay. Yes, so we have this. Question 2. The Decentralization Act was amended in 1991, okay. This new act introduced the 3 types of local councils, okay, and these were city, municipal, and district councils, okay. So the first question is question A, why is decentralization important? Give any 2 reasons. Now, decentralization is important. 1, it reduces delays, okay, as most decisions could be made on the spot instead of deferring to the headquarters. So if for example, people are also given the chances, or maybe the small wings or other wings of the government are given some tasks to perform, okay, it will be more easy for quick and fast, swift decision making. Okay, it will not take time because it's more difficult where one office is having more things to decide. Okay, so it is not much enough. So it needs a lot of people, okay, who are there to make decisions quickly and then they execute the decisions. Okay, so there is less derailment. Okay, so we can specify in that form, okay? And then also the second one we can state, okay, make plans and programs more relevant to local needs and conditions. So plans they are made quickly, okay? Now for the sake of studying, we can add more others, okay? We can also add the improve coordination between different government agencies in an area. Okay, that's another one. And then also we can specify reduces the burden on a senior staff at a national level. So as to, okay, so we can say, we can specify in that form, okay. And then we look into question B, okay. B1, in which type of councils do we find mayors and town clerks, okay. So in the type of councils where we find mayors and town clerks, we can say in a city or municipal council. So in city or municipal council, that's where we find mayors and then also we have town clerks. So we can say here in city and the municipal councils, okay? And then we have question 2, who heads the administrative structure of a local council? So there we can say a town clerk or the council secretary, or we can say a district secretary. So those are people who head or those are people who head the administrative or structure of the local council. Okay, so we can state town clerk or a district secretary. Okay, so we go to the other question. So on the other question there, on question C, before independence in 1964, the native authorities consisted of a chief and other traditional leaders. Mention 2 duties that were performed by the native authority. So those people, they were collecting tax, okay? Collecting tax like poor tax and then hot tax. So that was the role which they were doing, okay? And then also they were issuing taxes to people such as the dog license, okay, store license and bicycle license, okay? In old times, bicycles had some licenses. Then also chiefs performed the judicial functions, such as the presiding on civil cases at local courts. Okay, so that's what they did there, okay? So we can specify in that form, okay? That was one of the roles which the native authorities, they performed. And then here we can go on to this question, question D. Identify any 2 members of the local council. So there are many local members. I'll specify 2 and then I'll also give some extra ones for the sake of studying, okay? So the first one which we have is the mayor or council chairperson. And then also we have deputy mayor or deputy council chairperson. And then also we have ward councillors. We have area member of parliament. Then we have 3 chiefs representation. Then also we have 1 representative from the security forces, and then 1 representative from the labor movement. Then 2 clerk or district secretary. Okay, sometimes they call them the ex-official members. Okay, and then from there, so these ones are the particular members. Okay, we can say any members. Okay, but you can list out of these out of studying, because in the next exam they can say write 4. Okay, so you have to at least take note of the particular members of the local council. Right, so we go to the other particular question. Okay, question 3. Okay, but for question 3, we'll do it in time. I think so. This particular session is so long. So I'll do one side of section B, okay, and question 3 from the other videos, okay. So for now, we come to an end of this video, okay? So consider subscribing, okay? And thank you for watching, okay? So if there are some comments, okay, or any addition, okay, please, you can put the queries in the comment sections. Then from there, I will be able to pick up, okay? So thank you for watching one more time, okay? And subscribe to the channel as I upload new ones, okay?